When people think about the extinction of the dinosaurs, they often imagine it as a neat conclusion followed by a fresh beginning, as if one era simply powered down and another one switched on, cleanly and instantly. But that version of events exists mainly because it feels comforting, not because it reflects the reality of what actually happened, because when dinosaurs vanished 66 million years ago, the Earth didn't reset, reboot, or smoothly transition into a better world. It fractured into one of the most volatile and unstable intervals in its entire history. Since the asteroid impact didn't merely eliminate large animals, but dismantled the foundational systems that allowed complex life to function at all, with forests igniting across vast regions and then failing to recover for countless generations. Oceans losing the plankton that supported nearly every marine ecosystem. Sulfur compounds and dust flooding the atmosphere and blocking sunlight for years. Global temperatures collapsing into extreme cold before rebounding violently into intense heat. And photosynthesis slowing so dramatically that the planet effectively stopped producing enough energy to sustain itself, meaning extinction wasn't a single dramatic moment frozen in time, but a prolonged process that unfolded in destructive waves over thousands of years, beginning with plants, followed by herbivores, and finally predators, leaving behind a world that was not lifeless but deeply damaged, unnervingly silent, and fundamentally hostile to large, complex organisms. And within this broken landscape, survival was no longer determined by size, strength, or dominance, but by adaptability, patience, and the ability to endure extended periods of scarcity, which explains why the creatures that made it through were not the iconic giants. People remember but small, flexible animals capable of hiding underground, eating nearly anything, slowing their metabolisms, and waiting out catastrophe. And this reality is exactly why the idea that mammals immediately replaced dinosaurs is one of the most persistent misconceptions in Earth's history. Because for millions of years after the extinction, mammals remained small, vulnerable, and constantly preyed upon, struggling to survive in an environment that was still hostile to their success, while the true rulers of the post-dinosaur world were a strange and unsettling collection of survivors, including massive, flightless predatory birds that dominated open terrain, crocodilians that diversified into aggressive and bizarre forms far beyond anything alive today, and enormous snakes that expanded into ecological roles previously impossible, transforming rivers and forests into lethal ambush zones. And throughout this prolonged and unstable recovery period, evolution itself appeared to enter a kind of crisis state, because without stable ecosystems, natural selection began producing extreme and short-lived body plans at an accelerated rate, giving rise to mammals that grew large too quickly and collapsed under their own inefficiency. Predators equipped with crushing jaws but fragile skeletons. Herbivores with distorted skulls and strange dental arrangements that vanished without descendants, and entire evolutionary lineages that briefly appear in the fossil record only to disappear again, revealing that the post-dinosaur world was not a steady march toward progress, but a chaotic phase of trial and error, where most experiments failed, ecosystems repeatedly assembled and collapsed, and the planet spent millions of years balanced dangerously close to ecological failure, with no guarantee that complex life would ever truly recover. And it is within this prolonged instability that the real story of life after the dinosaurs becomes clear. Not as a triumphant rise of mammals, but as a fragile and desperate struggle against planetary chaos where survival depended less on innovation and more on simply avoiding elimination by the next environmental shock, and just as the Earth seemed to be inching toward something resembling stability. Just as fragile but functional food webs began to re-emerge, the planet was pushed perilously close to collapse once again, because around 56 million years ago, Earth experienced a sudden and extreme climate event that unfolded so rapidly in geological terms that life barely had time to respond, with global temperatures spiking sharply, polar regions warming, oceans absorbing massive amounts of carbon and becoming increasingly acidic, and habitats shifting faster than animals could migrate or adapt, triggering widespread extinctions, especially in marine ecosystems, where entire groups collapsed almost instantly. While on land, many of the mammals that had only recently survived the post-dinosaur chaos were wiped out again, proving that even after 10 million years of recovery, the planet remained balanced on a razor's edge, and that if this warming event had lasted slightly longer, intensified just a bit more, or coincided with additional stressors, the mammal-dominated world would never have formed, meaning modern ecosystems and humanity itself were never guaranteed, but instead depended on an extraordinary chain of near-miraculous survivals stacked one on top of another, because mammals did not rise due to superior design or inevitable destiny, but because they endured long enough for competitors to fail, predators to vanish, and ecosystems to finally stabilize. And even then this rise was slow, uneven, and constantly threatened by extinction, as mammals cautiously expanded into ecological roles once held by dinosaurs, not by conquering them, but by inheriting a world where the rules had changed and the giants were gone. Yet this inheritance came at a cost, because the early mammal world was shaped by instability, unpredictability, and relentless evolutionary pressure, where dominance was temporary, success was fleeting, and survival often meant lasting just long enough to reproduce before conditions shifted again. And when we zoom out and examine this entire stretch of deep time, honestly, the story becomes profoundly unsettling, because it reveals that the modern world is not the result of evolution confidently marching toward intelligence or civilization, but the outcome of repeated planetary disasters that could have erased our lineage entirely, where one more successful reptilian radiation, one slightly longer climate oscillation, or one additional failed recovery would have sent Earth down a completely alien evolutionary path with no humans, no cities, no history, and no one left to ask how it happened. And this reframes the extinction of the dinosaurs in a way that feels far less triumphant and far more fragile. Because dinosaurs did not step aside to make room for mammals, they left behind a shattered planet that nearly wiped out complex life altogether, and the age that followed was not a golden dawn, but a prolonged struggle against instability, where life repeatedly flirted with collapse, rebuilt itself imperfectly, and survived only by the narrowest of margins, meaning that life after the dinosaurs was not a victory lap for evolution, but a reminder of how easily everything we know could have failed, how close Earth came to becoming a quiet and alien world shaped by entirely different forms of life, and how our existence is rooted not in inevitability, but in chance, endurance, and survival against overwhelming odds, because life did not conquer the planet after the dinosaurs. It endured it, barely, for millions of years, and even then only because enough species survived long enough for stability to finally return, making the modern world less a masterpiece of design and more a lucky survivor of Earth's most dangerous experiment.